Welcome to our Business Google Hangout. We are here to offer some advice to those of you in small to medium businesses or looking at startups. We've got some experts here with us to answer your questions. If you do want to leave a question, you can leave it on the story that you're watching on Stuff down the bottom in the comment section, and we will try to ask as many questions as we can. Firstly, though, I want to introduce our experts that we have with us. Let's start with Nick.
Hi everybody, my name is Nick Churchhouse. I am the Venture Manager for Creative HQ, Wellington Startup Incubator. Pleased to be here. Looking forward to it.
Great, and over to Andy and Debra.
After you, Debra.
Okay, good morning. My name's Debra. I'm a business coach and EIR here at the Ice House in Auckland. Here with Andy, our CEO.
Yeah, g'day, Andy Hamilton from the Ice House. Been here for a while, since 2001. I'm also an investor in startup companies as well.
Great, thanks guys for taking the time from your busy schedules to be here. We're going to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes talking about starting a business. The first question I'm going to put up there is pretty broad. If you've had a brilliant business idea, how do you know if you have an idea for a business or if it's just an idea? Do you want to start with an answer there, Andy?
Sure, I'll do whatever I'm told. That's good at being told what to do. Hey, look, so I think all of us know that you've got to have an idea, you've got to have the creation, and that's critical. But the next thing you've got to do is fit that to a market and a market need. And so whether you call it lean startup, market validation, the fundamental philosophy is get the creation and then get into the market to kind of understand and identify what is called a pain point. If it ends up matching a pain point, you can build a business off that. But there are lots of ideas out there that ultimately won't go anywhere, maybe because they're a crap idea or maybe just because of timing. So, you know, our advice on this is to really think about how you do interviews in the market to understand what people are doing and how that'll help you work out whether you could build a business off that idea.
Great. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Debra?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, often when we have an idea, we'll talk to our family and our friends, and of course they're going to be 100% supportive of you. But they are family and friends, and what they have to say is only an opinion. So it's really important, as Andy said, that you actually go out there, you do a bit of market validation, you talk to some people who are in your target audience, and you get some real ideas from them as to whether it is an idea that they actually, solves a pain point they actually have, and B, if they will actually open up their wallet and pay you cold hard cash for it.
I think the other thing is, look, 70% of the people that we work with on validation fail through that first phase. And I think Nick probably will have a similar story in Christchurch. You know, it's a good thing because you learn a lot about the market and you also don't waste your time on something that may not actually be, you know, that good a business at the end of the day.
Great. Good advice. Nick, did you have anything you wanted to say on that topic?
Look, I endorse all of that. Andy, just for the record, we're in Wellington, not Christchurch, but I love the fact that you think we're across everything. Look, the only thing I would add is I often say to entrepreneurs that are at this stage of validating their ideas that if you don't know your customers by name, you don't know them at all. I get a lot of generic, oh yes, I understand who my customer is, and I get a lot of generic descriptors. But if you're not talking to real people and understanding who they are, where they're coming from, what their buying behaviours are, and how they see your product, then you're not really validating in the way that Andy and Debra have described.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. We're off to a great start. So you've decided that, you know, your idea can actually be a business, but what then are the 4 things that all startups need to know or to do within the first 6 months when they try to kick that idea off? Maybe we could just go around in the same order again, starting with Andy.
I'm going to hand over to Debra because I got distracted.
Okay, so the question was, what's the thing that they need, 4 things they need to know?
Yep, to get started in the first 6 months.
Okay, the first thing you need to understand is, as And you said before, is what is the pain point that you're actually solving? Who is the potential sort of target audience for you? And then you need to start thinking about, be really clear around what your long-term goal is for the business and what you personally want to get out of it. We do a huge amount of work with people on the leadership side of things because there are many different reasons why people want to go into business. And unless you're really clear around what's in it for you and what you want to achieve, it's very difficult to measure success along the way. So the fourth thing you have to have is a plan to achieve that success.
Sorry, Nick there?
Yeah, hi. Look, I agree with that. I mean, starting with that first question, it's very important to get in front of those customers and understand who they are, but also to quantify how many of them there are. A lot of people will say, look, I've got a product that the entire world wants. I would say that's perhaps too many. You need to pare it down and find a niche and a number of people that you can actually start to target and talk to. Equally, if you're too niche and you're getting very specific, you need to understand whether there is a global market for this, in which case your 100 people that might buy it in New Zealand could become a couple of million or 10 million worldwide. And that's really important to understand the size of your market in terms of getting people to buy into the potential. Next thing I would say is, what can you actually do? What's your skill set? What's the skill set of your team? And if you haven't got what I call the 3 hats in your team, you need to look for support outside of them. And the 3 hats are your market, what we call domain knowledge. Do you understand your customer? Do you understand the domain into which you're selling? All of their behaviours, how the market works, the sort of the political forces that are at stake. Secondly, do you have someone in your team that can actually build your product? Can it actually be done? If you're relying on hiring someone in to do that, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time, and they won't necessarily be invested in the outcomes in the same way you are. And the third hat is that business hat, understanding how you can apply a business model to your product that's going to actually turn out profit and a future that you actually want to invest your time and money in. Because this stuff is hard work. You put your time, you put your effort, you put a lot of money in, and you're often asking other people to do the same. So you need to understand how this is going to play out in terms of a business.
Great, thanks for that. Right, we'll move on a little bit then and thinking about the strategic way people can sort of get their business ideas and plans happening. What would your advice be of what people should include in their business plan as they're putting that together? Nick, do you want to start?
Sure. First and foremost, objective proof of all the things we've talked about to date. A lot of people will start with a business plan and start putting down lots of assumptions. These are great, and as Andy said, you have to start with an idea. You have to start with that blue sky thinking about what's possible. That's where all the great brainstorming comes from. Your next job is to list those assumptions of what you think the market's going to do, what you think your product can do, how you think it will be received by your customers, and then you go and prove those. So every time I hear a entrepreneur or a wannabe entrepreneur come to me with a whole lot of assumptions, they're typically saying, I think this, I think that. And I just tell them to listen to yourself. Every time you say I think, you turn it into I know. And if you have objective proof of all those things, then that makes an excellent business plan. And business plans can look all sorts of ways, but that's the most important thing, is proving those assumptions up front. That's me. I've lost Janine. You're on mute, I think.
We are heading over to Debra and Andy. Are you guys there?
There we go. We're back in. You hear us all
Great.
there? So look,
sorry, everyone.
Hey, that's cool. Just what I wanted to say is, who needs a business plan? The reality is it's fit for purpose and the stage you're at in your business. So what I would think about is everything that Nick said and being really focused on getting through the next phase, as well as what Debra said earlier, which is about, getting your vision, but then getting really tactical around the stuff that you need to do to take it to the next phase. And a couple of things I want to mention. If you haven't read Eric Ries's The Lean Startup or Rob Adams' If You Build It, Will They Come, have a look at that. Both of those books are fantastic, I suppose, manuscripts that you can use as you guide you through your journey. The other thing is, it's easy to read a book. It's a harder thing to stay committed to that execution side of it. And so I would just think about how you can ensure that you stay on the plan as you go through the execution. Debra.
Yeah, no, I back up everything that both Andy and Nick have said. I think the other thing is being very careful around what is defined as a business plan. I mean, the business plan you put together for a bank, for example, would be very, very in-depth and often not a very workable document. I prefer to break things down into pragmatic bite-sized chunks. So looking at your sort of 30, 60, 90, 180-day plans and goals, and something you can actually work with on a daily basis. So it becomes a working document rather than just something that gets shoved in a drawer. And
that you can share with your team and your advisors. One of the things that you heard Nick and us talk about is building a team that matches the risk and the challenges that you have over the next wee while. You want that plan, whatever that is, to be owned not only by you, but your advisors, your investors, even your customers to some extent, so they all get on the journey with helping you actually make this thing real and successful.
If I can just add something on the end there, it's a point Andy made which is really important, is your business plan has to be fit for purpose, and so it is an active document that's constantly changing. But typically what you're using a business plan for is to present to someone else, whether it's a bank like Debra said, or it's an investor or someone who thinks they need a business plan to see. And one of the key things which people will be looking for in terms of buying into what you're about, buying into your dream and helping you with it, is what you've done. What momentum do you have? What's your traction? Even if you haven't sold to any customers, show exactly what you've achieved in the time that you have had this idea, because most people won't buy into an idea, into a business dream, even into an operating business, unless there is a definable history of momentum and you show that you can actually execute on your idea, even with limited resources.
I'd like to add to that as well, please, Nick. I mean, you're absolutely spot on. You have to show the successes you've actually achieved to date, and also the next steps, what are the next steps you're actually going to do, because quite often people will come in and say, we've done this, this, and this, but investors and banks and other people who are interested want to know what your next steps are as well. So you've got some momentum, you've got some real customers, what now?
Okay, I'm going to go to a couple of questions that we've come through from people watching our Hangout. The first one is a question here. I have just started a new tech company launching a new app in the South Island. What are the biggest things I should be looking out for? Is it things like IP protection? Andy, do you want to answer that?
Well, so that's cool. One of the great things about apps and in this day and age is that you can launch anything from anywhere. IP protection is really just about barriers to entry, and in the software world it's a lot harder these days to be able to patent things, and the reality is it's often an execution game. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't consider IP protection. It just means you've got to think about how do you protect or build value in your business, and execution may be the best way to do that. Unless you've got something that is truly inventive, so there's cross sections of how you do IP protection. But I think the other thing to reflect on, when we had the first app stores, it was easy to get measurable in that app store. Now it's really changed. So I'd just be thinking about how you can get that product out, get partnerships to get you scale so that you can clip the ticket on the way through in terms of just building that scale of usage. Same fundamentals exist in my view. And if in doubt, go and see some IP lawyers to get some advice around what your IP strategy should be.
Can I jump in here, Janine?
Yes, do.
Yeah, look, this is something I hear a lot, and I'm quite hot on it, because an app is not a business. An app is it's a channel to market, and you need to be more specific about what exactly you're doing. It's like saying I'm starting a shop, or I own a car. You need to be more specific. If you're looking for specific advice on your business, I need to understand what that app is doing And equally, if you're asking questions like, do I need IP advice or protection, and certainly if you're looking for help along it, I think it's really important that you don't describe your business as an app. Your app is just how your customers interact with your business. As Andy said, it's a great mode of connecting with the market because it scales really well. You can get it out to a lot of people fast, and you can change it fast. You can be really nimble, which is cool, but focus on what actually you're doing for your customers through that particular medium, being the app. It's just a small point I think is really important when you talk about your business.
Thanks for that. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Deborah, or should we move on to the next question?
No, that's fine. I just, I guess going back to the Rob Adams book, if you build it, will they come? The same thing kind of applies to when you're building an app. You're absolutely right, Nick. It is just about the way you do business with customers. A lot of people think they're going to put an app out there, they're suddenly going to get hundreds and thousands and millions of people signing up to it. It doesn't quite work like that. You actually have to have a pain point you're solving, first of all, or some reason for them to open their wallets.
Yeah, and hey, just on that note, Rob Adams is actually going to be in the country in July and is going to be running some regional workshops across the country. So it's a great opportunity to really engage with a worldwide expert around how you validate your new product or service. And so find that out, more information on the iSales website if you're keen to come along.
Thanks. I've got another reader question here. It's quite a long one from someone called Andrew. I'm going to paraphrase a wee bit, Andrew, if you're watching. I'm a young South Islander who 4 years ago found a market for a product that didn't currently exist. Hummed and hard about pursuing it for 3 years before I took the plunge, and I've spent a decent chunk of my savings having a beta product developed, and I'm in Australia testing. The response has been incredibly positive, but I'm a bit stuck on what to do next. I want to get it to a saleable standard into the market in the coming months. It's an international product with specific countries that will be high demand, and the product is mainly a software product. Is there any chance that you could give me a rundown of what you feel I should do next? Should I get in touch with an incubator straight away, find funding from family, or develop the product to a saleable condition? Do you want to over with Andy and Deborah? Would you like to answer that one?
Well, you know, the curse of an entrepreneur is the product is never good enough, and more money gets spent on the dev to perfect. The reality is, you know, the minimal viable product approach just goes, if you can get into the market and it matches a need, you can get some experience, get some knowledge, and good enough is good enough. I'm not to say that Microsoft is the way to build your business, but they've built a pretty successful business. So my advice is there's nothing better than cash flow that comes from customers. If you can convince some early adopters to come on board and even pay you money, that just helps give you the funding and gives you the experience to work out where to go to next. My attitude in terms of whether to reach out to incubators, reach out to people who can help you get through the next phase. Whether that's an incubator, a mentor, an investor, you know, it doesn't matter. Friends and family are great because they believe in you and they love you. That doesn't mean they'll actually help you. So I would just think about, you know, basically who has, you know, I think this is saying, would you stand on the shoulders of giants to do what you want to do, or would you do it yourself? Why do it alone? Find somebody who's been there, done that, get him or her to help you, and get some customers paying you some money. That's the best validation you can ever do.
I agree. I think the best thing a small business or a startup business can ever do is just ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help and learn from those that have already done what you've done.
Anything to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, I agree. It's about asking for help, but the thing is, you can plug into so many avenues of support around the country. There are some great courses that are run through some of the tertiary education institutions around the place. Your incubator, local incubator, is probably a good place to start because they'll know where all these things are. They might not be the actual outfit that can help you, but they'll be able to plug you into often the tech circles or some of the local meetups where you might be able to meet these team members that Andy and Debra talk about, and meet advisors who might be able to engage with your business and give you some early advice. And if they're interested enough, then they can become really key members of your team, whether actually they're working alongside you and have a stake in the business, whether they become an early advisory board and start to steer you in the right direction. The most important thing is that when you're asking for help, that you're identifying that these people can actually take you forward and that they understand where you're going. But if they ask hard questions, that's a good thing. If you start getting a lot of easy questions and you feel really comfortable, then I'd question the advice you're getting, because it gets harder from here. So make sure you're connecting with the right people, and I think incubators are a great place to start. But there's plenty of stuff out there.
Thanks,
Could
everyone.
I add to that as well, please, just very quickly?
Sure.
I think what Nick was saying around the whole advisory board and having many different people actually critiquing what you're doing is really, really important. And so often just asking one person who may have been there, done that, will give you one view, one opinion, one lot of experience. Once you get involved with an incubator, one of the programs that we run, you can actually get a whole group of people who can offer different perspectives, different insights into it, and can be quite critical of the business. So either a formal advisory board or through networks through the incubators is a great way to get that varied advice.
Okay, moving on. How does someone who is trying to get their startup off the ground, how do they decide or work out which sort of finance is the best for them? Nick?
Good question. Typically your own. In my view, and it's backed up by stats internationally, that the top 3 sources for startup financing are your own savings, family and friends. And I always ask people what's the number 3, and they always say it's investors, but it's not. It's actually credit cards. Right around the world, startup founders load themselves up. They do it themselves, and that is through their own means. And that speaks volumes when you actually get to the step where you're asking people outside your close circles to engage in your business. It's no easy road going down the investor path. It is fraught with pitfalls and can often be an extremely challenging place to be. Equally, I get a lot of questions of people saying, hey, can I get some government grants on this? That money is out there, but it's not free money. There's no such thing as free money. It comes with a lot of hoops to jump through. It comes with a lot of reporting to do, and often it's not aligned in the long term with what you're trying to do. But I would start by looking at your own resources and making sure that you have invested in your own idea. And if you've done that, then I would say start talking to those people that we talked about in the last question about where the options lie for you locally, because there will be options out there.
So why and what for, I would say. Everything Nick said is right. The other thing I would just think about is, investment money that comes that doesn't help you accelerate quicker is money, but it's not money with a cherry on top. And so, I just think about how money can be a bit of oxygen with talent that can really help get you there quicker. The biggest insight I've had working at the Ice House over 12 years is this: an entrepreneur thinks differently to an investor. For you to get an investor on board, you need to think like the investor to understand what, because they don't want to hear you talk about the 60 things you've got to do over the next 3 weeks. What they want to hear is the one thing you'll do over the next 3 weeks that will increase value in the business. And that's, it's just a different perspective.
Did you have anything else to add, Deborah? We've got quite a few reader questions, so I'm wondering if we might be able to power
Let's
on
get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay, we might need to keep our answers a wee bit shorter so we can get through what we've got. Okay, first one we've got now.
Short answers, mate.
I have just started an online business which supplies information and advice to landlords. I would like to know what medium you suggest for advertising and your views on LinkedIn and other social media. And that is from Carrie. Should we head over to Deborah and or Andy for this one?
Sure. You know what I'd be doing? I'd be going and talking to some landlords and finding out where they hang out. Social media is just another channel to get out there to people. So I'd be going and talking to your landlords, to your customers, and saying, where would you expect to hear about this kind of information? And from that, build a picture, build a persona of the type of people you're actually going after, and then target those places that they hang out naturally.
Anything else to add, Andy?
No.
No? Okay, we'll move on. Hi team, I have an idea for a new gaming genre. I'm working on promo videos to highlight the key points as well as the differences with current genres. My plan is to start a website with these promo videos to introduce the concept to the world. Do you have any suggestions? Who wants to go with this one? Andy,
I'll talk to this one.
Great.
This it's a really hard thing to get a handle on. Gaming genre, promo videos, creating a website to push it to the world. Haven't actually got too much idea of what exactly you're looking to get back from your market, who your customers are, how you're engaging with them. But what I would say is this is a really hot space. There's a lot of interest around gaming. Traditional businesses are looking to gamification models to try and accelerate what they're doing in the online space. So say you're onto something, but go back to those tenets we've been talking about right through this is talk to the customers, identify who you're speaking to, who you want to get in front of this website, and why they're there. And is this a business or are you doing them a public good by educating the market? You know, both are valid. One of them will pay more money than the other.
Yeah, and I just jump in, you know, the whole fundamental principle of marketing where we all want to get to is word of mouth. And there are, you know, a number of different tools today that you can use to get to word of mouth, including websites, including social, including mobile, and that we're just going to go into the mix of your tactical strategy to actually get the word out. And the great thing these days is that you can get access to some of these also celebrity people who give you huge reach when they start talking about you. So I just think about word of mouth and how to make that happen.
Thanks. Along the similar lines to that, we have a question about a startup for helping suppliers engage with external retail staff who advise customers on what product to purchase. It's largely around online training. And wanting to know, how can I generate publicity around it to create general awareness at head office level for corporates, preferably internationally, and get corporate sales outside of posting blatantly promotional plugs on news websites?
As Andy just said, it's quite good to look at who the influencers are. So who are the people who actually have influence on the people you're trying to reach, and get them on board with you so they can actually start to talk in a more heartfelt way about the business rather than you just blatantly promoting it.
One of the key things on this is case studies. If you can get involved with a corporate that understands your business, that can glean some value from your business, and then get them talking about it, it's much more compelling than you saying you've got to buy this. You've got an existing customer who's seeing value in it. So if you can seek out those early adopters and get them on video, all the better.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that's really important in that, we hear time and time again startups signing deals with like Microsoft and HP. All those deals they normally never make money out of those deals, but what it does is it gives them the credibility that other people look at them, and that's called momentum. So don't always be too fixed at the early stage on getting pricing that enables you to, you know, make margin. You've got to build momentum that other people start to go, oh, I believe in those guys. And then one day somebody will come along and maybe buy you if you've got good momentum.
Great, thanks for that. We have a question now on what are the biggest issues with New Zealand's entrepreneur network, and how can New Zealand make it a better place for startups? I'll start with you, Nick.
It's a really good question. It's the big question, and it's the question all of us, I guess, in this call particularly are asking, because it's what we're trying to do every day. It's why the Ice House exists, it's why Creative HQ exists, and why a lot of the organisations who support us exist. The biggest issues with the entrepreneur category in New Zealand, I think one of the key things which I would get on is the DIY gene that we tend to have in our New Zealand psyche. It rallies against the thing that we're talking about a lot here with the team, the focus on team, getting people alongside you, asking for help, and more importantly is actually sharing in the journey, getting people on board, but also rewarding them for that particular help that they're giving. You know, it's the old adage of grow the pie, don't try and grow your own slice. So I would say get that DIY gene and flick it over your shoulder, move on, and work together better.
Do you know, like, so Nick's right, we all spend a lot of time kind of working in the system, but what solves it is success. And so my view is actually things are going pretty well in New Zealand. Do you know, it doesn't matter whether you're in New Zealand or in the Valley or in New York or in Ohio, it's bloody hard starting a business. And there's going to be a lot of failure rate. The cool thing, some of the stories, I mean, listen to the companies. SLI is listing today, you know, Vend, Xero, Diligent, Orion Health, Power by Proxy, the Lightning Lab companies that have just pitched over the last few weeks. It's a cool time to start a business, and some guys are making really good money here in New Zealand. It's still really hard to get up to the Valley, but I'm just going to end with one final story. There's this young fella called Ollie from Taupo, I think he is. He's building a business. He's just spent 3 months in the Lightning Lab in San Francisco. How did he do that? Who cares? But he got off his ass, he got on a plane, and he went to the Valley. And he's had an incredible experience. He's come back because his visa's run out, and he's moved to Auckland, as I believe, you know, to continue his business. You know, there are no problems in New Zealand. It's just hard. And I encourage anyone to get out there, have a go. If it doesn't work, try again.
Anything else to add to that, or we're moving on to the next one, Debra?
Next question.
Yep.
Next question. Okay, what have we got? We've got quite a few coming in here. Let me grab. Sorry, we've got a few coming. Okay, hi team. Oh no, we've answered that one. Okay, what have we got? I'm involved in an online startup which is very close to launch. We aren't sure what to expect following the launch. We could grow very quickly, or things may go a little slower than we initially anticipate. Is there any advice regarding growing too quickly, and on the other side, not quite taking off? And he also says, Nick, I actually met you last week at your Lightning Lab presentation in Queenstown and really enjoyed it. So maybe we'll go to you to answer that one then.
Excellent. I met a bunch of people in Queenstown and they were all awesome, so good to have you on board. In terms of growing too fast, yeah, I mean, it's a nice problem to have, isn't it? But absolutely, you need to be able to deliver to your customers, and I would say you want to stage your growth and understand what you can actually service. One of the key things that online startups don't factor in is actually that customer service aspect. They think if we can get a website up, then 1 million people can use it tomorrow. You know, quite aside from the actual pipe and the server issues and being able to cope with the volume, depending on what you're doing, you may well have a bunch of people that need help using your product. It's easy to access online, but sometimes it's not as easy to use as you think it is. And I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs spend a lot of time answering emails. You know, this is where they're in there 24/7, neglecting their families and all sorts of things, and it becomes an absolute onerous burden. So I'd make sure that you get that customer service up front.
Over to Nick and Debra. Anything to add on that one?
No, just the same. It's more of the same, really. I mean, just be prepared that when things do go wrong, and often they will. Just have that really, really great customer service. Twitter, when it first launched many, many years ago, crashed on a regular basis, but they managed to deal with it in a way that people didn't seem to mind, and that's kind of the nirvana you want to get to.
And I'd just like to say, hope is a virtue. That's not a strategy or a tactic. You should know whether it's going to go well or not. If you don't know, then that's a problem.
Okay, I guess sticking around that idea of you know, focusing what you're doing and being aware that things, you know, that there might be challenges. What do you think the biggest challenges someone trying to set up a startup is going to face?
For me, it goes back to this validating the market. I think we all think in a linear way. You know, I fall in love every day that a new business comes in because I want them to succeed. The reality is, you know, only a very small percentage of those ones will even have a good market. So for me, that is the single greatest challenge, is getting through that first phase. The next phase is how you have to become a chameleon as an individual as you grow, and you have to move yourself into different areas and functional capabilities which really stretch you. So first phase, it's all about finding the path and ensuring that you've got the right market to go after. The second phase is how you can grow and change as a person to help the business as it goes through that.
Do you have anything that you want to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I see early stage entrepreneurs stumble with is typically these people are pretty good at building a product. You've got to get your head out of your product. Your product actually doesn't matter at the end of the day. You have a team, that's you and your team, and you have your market. Whatever goes in between, as long as you're solving a pain in the market and someone will pay for it back the other way, product, what it is, doesn't actually matter. Once you get your head around that fact, it becomes a hell of a lot easier.
Thanks for that. What's the main reason why startups do fail?
Because they don't validate validate their market. 1, 2, they don't grow their team to cope with the challenges.
Nick?
And I think, sorry, just if I just add to that.
Debra.
Yeah. Going back to that whole addressable market as well, often people will come in and they say, I've got a product for dogs, and there are 3 million dogs in New Zealand, therefore my market is 3 million dogs. That is not your addressable market. That is the number of dogs that are actually in New Zealand. Your addressable market gets a lot more niche than that, because there are people who won't buy stuff for the dogs, there are working dogs, there are people who just won't pay money for that sort of stuff. So you have to think very, very carefully about how big that addressable market is. And then I think the other reason that they fail is because they don't think about what it will actually cost in terms of time and money to get this thing up and running. Most people completely underestimate the amount of time and the amount of money required to actually get something off the ground.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, if you go onto the, I think it's on Pando Daily, there was this great blog that I saw around the cost of software as a service businesses, and looking at the listed companies in the US, the amount of money that these companies spend to get into market as a SaaS company is just mind-boggling. I mean, it almost, turns you off doing any SaaS business. You go and look at Xero's, however, they've been able to get into the market way cheaper than a lot of others have. And so I think it just comes, a lot of this just comes back to having clarity around where you're going and the costs, and being ahead of the curve every which time. The old adage, work on the business, not in it.
I'd support that. I'd just say that I see a lot of young businesses run out of runway, they run out of resource, all the things that Andy and Debra have talked about in terms of time and money, they always disappear. And what you have to be is you have to be looking ahead a year, knowing what resources you need. Often entrepreneurs will go into a funding round and win and get some investors on board. That just makes it harder, because that money will run out and you need to know where it's going to come from in the next round. So typically in New Zealand we don't have the access to the types of funds they have in the US. The one key thing I would say that Andy mentioned earlier is early revenues. If you can get people paying for your product early, it gives you a lot more of a comfort factor in terms of cash flow for your business, which will extend your runway.
Thanks, Nick. We'll just, we've only got time for a couple more questions, I think. We'll see how we're going for time. For those startups that are trying to get off the ground, what kind of support is there available that they can tap into to help them succeed? Andy and Debra will go to you.
Okay, so look, I think, I actually think there's a plethora of support out there. Whether it's expertise, whether it's networks, or whether it's funding, there is a bunch of organisations, 20 or 30 organisations in New Zealand. And just as I told the story about Ollie, there's nothing to stop you jumping on a plane and going and staying in a backpacker's place in Silicon Valley and reaching into things like the Kiwi Landing Pad, which is up there. I think there is a lot out there, including Business Mentors New Zealand and the like. The key is the value that organisation or person brings to help you, and the relevance. The thing I'd say, if you're doing something for the first time, find somebody who's done it before, who can actually help and guide you. They won't necessarily want to do it, and don't be afraid of sharing some of the upside with that organisation or that people. But be demanding on what they can actually do for you.
Debra, did you have a comment on that as well?
I agree with everything Andy just said.
Great. Nick?
Absolutely. Keep the noise up. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. We have a bunch of companies, about 20 on a rolling average within the Creative HQ portfolio, and the ones that I see that move the fastest are the ones that are constantly looking for help, constantly putting their hand up and saying, next please, I need more help, because when you ask, it comes. New Zealand's got a very strong entrepreneurial support ecosystem, and if you put your hand up, people will crowd around. They like what you're doing.
And just think about that. Sometimes when you're starting out, it's quite a good idea to get an advisor who's got a bit of a reputation that will then bring in other people as well. So think about your networking, just like you get early customers to build momentum around advisors. If you get a Sam Morgan or a Rod Jury, you've hit the hay time, right? But you probably won't get them on the first go. So just think about other advisors that can help bring credibility to your business, and that will just then help take it to the next level.
Look, one thing I'll just add on support is make sure you do something with it. Go into these conversations and with mentors and such with open ears and a willingness to listen, but more importantly, a willingness to act on the advice. You'll waste a lot of people's time if you just bat it off and do what you're always going to do in the first place.
Yeah, true.
Well, this is a question that maybe we should have actually started off this whole chat with. Is now actually a good time to start a business in New Zealand? Nick, I'll pass that to you first.
Absolutely. People often ask me, does the economic cycle affect startups? And some people have the opinion that in a down cycle there's more startups, but it's also more challenging to get enterprise customers on board because budgets are tighter, etc., etc. Typically what you see around the world is that startups are doing it hard no matter what the time, what the economic cycle, what the climate is. They're always doing it hard, lean and fast. So the main thing I would say is momentum. The earlier you start doing the things we've talked about, validating your market, talking to customers and getting those early revenues on board, the faster you're going to grow in any economic situation. So yeah, today's the day to do it.
And what I'd say is, any time's right, any time's wrong. The great analogy these days is the baseball analogy. Get in, get out. If it works, fantastic, ride it. If it doesn't, ditch it. Go to the next idea, or go and get a job from a corporate. Some of the young New Zealanders, there's nothing better than getting some experience from working inside a corporate multinational. Because later, when you go to sell your startup to them, you'll know how they work. So just think about how you can map that out. The other thing I'll say is the cost to get into a business these days is way lower, than 10 years ago, which means, that's cool. It also means the payoff will be lower, but that's really attractive because it's not such a barrier to actually getting into business.
And I think if you've got a real and growing pain point and a real and growing audience, then any time is a good time to be starting a startup with the right team.
Okay, I think that's pretty much all we've got time for, and we'll wrap it up now. Do you guys have any final advice that you would like to pass on? Maybe we'll go to Debra first.
I'll just go back to what I said earlier. I think it's really important you ask for help. I've been in New Zealand for about 12 years now, and I've found that when you actually go out and you ask people to help you and ask them to put you in contact with their networks, they will do it for you. So don't be afraid to do that. Ask for help.
Yeah, and be discerning of what they can actually do to help you. And I think, and then just get on with it.
This has been fantastic. Thanks for all the great questions. I'd just like to say that, look, I think early stage business and young startups, be they tech or non-tech, are the future of this country. It's what we're looking for. We've got a huge undercurrent of innovation that runs through every Kiwi. And all the people that are on here, tell all of your friends all of the things you've heard because it's good advice. And you'll hear it when you reach out, as Debra has suggested. Go for it.
Thanks again. I'm sure that advice has been really helpful to those who ask questions and to those who are watching. We really appreciate all of you guys taking the time to help us out with this and take part in our Google Hangout. We hope we can do it again soon. Thanks, everyone. See you all later.
Thank you.